so I'm going to start over on page Reish Ayin Ches. We stopped in the middle. There's some long drushes here. And so now he's going to focus on this word. I have this on Reish Ayin Ches. So it's Haaretz. Now I'm going to focus on this word Haaretz. Is it Tevis Haaretz Hasheni Shal Parshas Bereshis? So this word appears twice. This comes from this pasuk Hasheni v'Haaretz Chayset Tohu. That one. Lav b'chushbon, and then it says that this concept is not counted. Ena nimnis b'cheshbon ha-tevos shel ha-pasuk harishon u'nermaza d'sheva malachim shemesa. So the first time it refers to the malachim. Ayadecha b'sheva tikuni gugolto kamosha is boyer la'el, as we've been talking about. They're not numerated there. Ki tevis haaretz, because here the aretz shechah v'shel pasuk hasheni ena b'klal tevis haaretz shebesof pasuk harishon. So it's not talking about the same thing. V'inyan who the Indian is like this: ki shtei tevos elu romazus l'shtei bechinos shonos. There are two different aspects altogether. He says ki tevis haaretz shebesof pasuk harishon romezes the melech hashvi. It's really talking about the seventh king. The tikkun shuhu yisod that comes to be masukin, he says that goes up for a tikkun into, I guess, the mochus timor, and it's the aspect of yisod asherabel nichlal melech hashmini, that in the yisod you also have an eighth one incorporated along with it, shuhu atarasa yisod, which is the atarasa yisod, which is the malchus dika aspect there. So the hinder of a bechinas malchus, the goof of Zer Anpin, this is the malchus of the body of Zer Anpin. In other words, Zer Anpin automatically, I saw this elsewhere with Cronenberg. We actually saw it, but we probably didn't understand it. He says that Zer Anpin has its own female attributes, right? So that's a Taras Yisod. But he says the Tevis Haaretz, so that's where we understand it. That's the Ataras Yisod that collects everything that's a female part of the male. But the second time, Romezis Malchus Atzma, because now he says that this is a separate entity called Malchus. The height of Bepechin is Nukva HaIkris. This is the ultimate Nukva. Shuchu Bepartzif Ne'atzma. She is a parchment by herself. It's not part of the system. It's not part of Zer Anpin. Vehi ena bechlal minyan hamalachim shanir mazu b'pasuk harishon. So when we talk about the melech that died, the seventh melech that incorporated also within it, I guess the Ataras Yisod. Then didn't he say that Ataras Yisod is also the eighth melech, who's the Mashiach? So anyway, but here we talk about a different entity, like the Sulam said, or it's the original. Tzimtzum, it's the original, what is that word? He's a butzina de cardenuso, something like that. He said, it doesn't have anything to do with happened with the malachim. It's not part of what, how they broke. Or anything that had to do with the malachim. Baha Itmar says like this, Sha'ara is batelis, this concept that the land will be completely nullified. V'lo malko, there's no king. V'hailu sha'hamalchus adfach b'nikras ara ene v'klal hamalachim kadmoim demisa. This is what he wants to say. This is the Gon wants to say. There's another malchus out there. Below Malchut, Olam Atohu was never in charge over there in the Olam Atohu, Shar Amalachim, where it had a reign and it died. Ella is batelis, but rather it stopped functioning. That's my translation. Because it's not part of what happened in the Malachim situation. So therefore, when the malachim are brought back and we're building an olam atikun, this malchus is still untouched. Ki lo nisakta betikun partzif, it wasn't made into a partzif. So he said, because why? Because the chesed flows in. That's what normally happens in Zer Anpin, I guess. and builds up Zer Anpin to an extent that he could Shuhu. Let me go on. Shuhu Iger Hatikun Shal Olam Hatikun. So it's not the resurrection, so to speak, of the broken malachim. That's not what's going on here. Ella Hamalchus the She'eres Bebechinas the Kuda, but she remains that dot. That's why I thought it was like the Sulam of his, or anyway, the She'eres Bebechinas the Kuda are the beginning of the Eitz Chaim. Bebechinas Gevuros Bilvad, so it's only a dot, a Gevura, which as maybe think that it's the original Tzimtzum. Bilvad ve'edach nimtakes b'chasadim ela yedera v'zivuk zer v'nukva. So he says this is another chiddush. He says that this malchus only can ve'edach nimtakes be sweetened only through actual yichud. Now, I thought that the yichud that we were talking about, the Ikrivi, what we always talk about, the Zachar V'Nuk, is between Malchus, let's say, the Ataras Yisod of Zer Anpin, which is a question of how does it become completely detached from Zer Anpin, and that's what I thought. So anyway, going on. Umahaki the is lataya nafka. V'hatikun v'hayechidi chashena'asa b'malchus ba'olam hatikun, who, so he says, the one and only tikun that takes place in the olam hatikun is shal matza hamalchus yotza az min klalas haklipos. So this malchus, this pure negativity, is what he said. He says it comes out from the curse of the klipos. But that's not what actually, when we use the word tikkun, that's not what we're talking about. Then you see us a malchus min a klipos, so now we're taking malchus out of the klipos. Now this is coining another idea. Before I just had, zocher v'nok. Now he said that the Inyan Yitzias a Malchus min a Klipos, so that whole concept that Malchus, this Malchus we're talking about, is stuck in the Klipos, I think. Ki ba'olam atochu is batelas a Malchus, because during that period of time, Malchus loses its functionality. V'yarda the matar benukva de Klipa. So he's talking about olam nekudim. He said v'yarda the matar benukva de Klipa, and it falls into the Klipa. Shehiba Bechinas Kilalas Adoma, the curse of the ground, which means the curse of Malchus. The Nikwas Gam Ad Masafar, so it's also called the earth of dust, the land of dust. He's a Chavaz Kashahaisa Malchus Beklipa, so now Malchus is in the Klipa. Nifra Bibena Raw. Why? He says because the raw then leaves it. Now I'll read it again. So fell into the klipa, which he calls the kilalus adama. But what happens is while she was there, nifra b'menach raw, the bad part of her separates. And then when the malachim are going to come along, let me get this down here. So he said, so now when it's time for the tikkun, so it comes out from the curse of the klipa, and it becomes refined out to the side of goodness. That's during the time of the tikkun. So since malchus itself is not affected by the lights, these new lights that are coming from these chasadim, or this chesed, shall olam hatikun. So therefore, whatever is going on in the olam hatikun does not affect this malchus. It's like a planetary body that's outside of the system. But it came back to a certain extent, he said, because during the tikkun, some of the raw, or not the raw, but the raw separates from it. So therefore, it goes down. It goes down into the klipas be'etz chet adam berisha. Then it fell back down at the time of chet adam berisha ad sheba Noach v'chazav nisakna, until Noach came back and did it. So in other words, its position depends on what we're doing. Whoa. Okay. Where's the... There we go. Okay, I got you on the speaker now. I'm not sure where I lost you. Where would you like to start?
Anywhere.
V'oz kashachoyach hamalchul beklipos nifre b'menach haroah. So he makes that statement. V'achakach be'ez hatikun. Then, as the malachim are being mesukan, he says, Yatzach b'malchus ben kila l'saklipos. It leaves the curse of the klipa and is part of the mitzvah tov. And the bad, I guess, it starts to becoming refined towards the side of good. In other words, the bad leaves it, or something like that. Amna mekevin shachar b'malchus ba'adfach b'non nesaktach b'tikun oros chadashim shal chesed shal olam atikun. So malchus itself is not affected by what's going on in the tikkun. L'kach chazer v'yarda b'klipas be'ez chet adam arishon. So therefore, it's outside of it. But then the chet caused everything to fall, or whatever. And so he said b'klipas chet adam arishon ad sheba noach v'chazer v'tikna, and brought it back again. So here we see this malchus not being part of the tikkun, but it is affected by the behavior of what we're doing. Dechsiv Kamosha Kosev Etzel Noach, it reads this by Noach. Ze Yenachameni b'ma'aseinu itzvon yodenu. So he's comforting me from our deeds and from the sadness of coming from, as a result, I guess, of our hands. Min Hashem, from the land that Hashem cursed. Pirush, so he said this explanation, Noach hotzi es malchus min a nukva de tehoma rabba. It's from the nukva, the klipa. So he's able to take malchus out from the klipa, which it fell into as a result of the sin. Hanikras admas afar, which is called by the name of a land of dust. Shehiba is kilo the sadama. So dust, I guess, means it's not fertile in some way. I'm not sure exactly why dust. So v'himtik as called dinich hamalchus and dikradama, and he was responsible for at that time then sweetening all of the dinim that malchus has. A nikras adama, that malchus itself is called adama. So when he says adnas atma, the offer of malchus would translate then. So the dinim shall edom. So he said again, the word admas, referring to malchus here in this case, is also referring to the redness that is found in it, which is our pure dinim. Ki noach shehu b'bechinas yisod. Tikkun is a malchus besod zivug yisod umalchus. So he says that this is the only tikkun that actually works. It works here. So that is the yisod umalchus in a union. And this is ultimately what happens. So he's saying something like there are two separate things going on here altogether. The ultimate yichud that we're constantly talking about was the yichud of Zachar V'Nog, is not the same thing as the Ataras Yisod of Zer Anpin and the Yisod of Zer Anpin. It's not the same thing. So then, which is which? So he is talking about it. So the same, we had the same thing at the time of the Nikudim. Shechab Malchus is Batelas v'namflacha benuk v'deklipa. That Malchus became a function, it lost its function, and therefore it fell into the klipa. And at the time of rebuilding the malachim, it comes out of the curse of the klipos. Until the time there's actually a yichud between Zer Anpin and this malchus. So this malchus, which is a parts by itself, that's where you see this pasuk which says haaretz shel pasuk hasheni in the second pasuk. So now the pasuk continues, is tohu, that's where we were, ubohu v'choshek al pnei tahom, over the face of the depth. Ruach Elokim merachefes al pnei hamayim, and then hovering over the water is the ruach of Elokim. So he says Tleiser. These are 12 things. 13 rather. 13. So let's say they count them up. He says, Choise, Tohu, Vohu, V'choshech, is al, and then Pnei, Tehom, V'ruach, Elokim, Merachefes, al, Pnei, Hamayim is 13. Okay, so he says, what are these 13 words doing? V'hem romazim l'churban ubitul shel shneim aser chelke hamalchus. Now, here's some more ideas. He says this whole idea here represents the destruction, the nullification of the 12 portions of malchus. Now, that sounds like astrology to me, or at least the concept of cycles where you're breaking malchus into 12 parts. Ki hamalchus nikra Shah. She's called Shah. She's the gematria 375. Umis chalekes l'shtaim esrei shows. And so this Shah is divided up into 13 different hours. And all of these aspects were nullified during the period of the Tohu. Now, let me see. He said again, there was the pasuk is tohu v'hoshech lepe'amayim. So he said the Hare Kan Shlosh Esrei Tevos. I'm just trying to read back, see where I'm at. Okay, let's go on. Bibechinas v'izbatelas arak amor la'el. So this is the idea of nullifying the aras, which is malchus. Ugeneged shteim esrei shalos elo shenechravu. So now there were these 12 hours that were destroyed. Now, using this word hours here is I don't have a handle on it. Ugeneged shtei esrei shalos elo shenechravu that were destroyed. Yeshtem esrei tevos b'posuk. So that's to tell you about all of that destruction. Men choyse tohu ad tevos panei. V'teva shlosha esrei. So, but then if you count them up and you say the 13th one was the word mayim. Kolelos kol shtem esrei. It has within it the 13th is the base kibble for all the other 12. Talian betlesa yakira de yakirusa. So that yakira the yakirusa, he's been using it to mean the beard of Eric Anpin. The V'kalos of Shlosha Esrei Tevos al Pasuk Shehei Bechinas Achurban Abitul Kol al Shalamachos Hebel Toluya V'Nisaknim Ayedech Shlosh Esrei Tikuni Dikna de Eric Anpin, and is that Dikna that actually puts together what? These 13 or these 12 parts that were broken. I think that's what he means. V'hinei Tevos v'ha'aretz. And now let's look at the word ha'aretz again. Shebetechilas the Pasuk. It's not one of the 13 that we just counted. Which once again over here puts us together with the 13 tikkunim of the dikna. Ki tevis ha'aretz, because the word ha'aretz itself, he parts of malchus ba'atzma, it's talking about the parts of malchus itself. That in this malchus, all the other 13 are there. Oh, lost them again. Okay, so we seem to have wandered into a different place where he starts talking about the concept of hours and the dividing up. Okay, so let's go on. So I got to the third line from the bottom of the left column is the word dikna. So he says after that, he says, Ki tevis ha'aretz, he parts of malchus ba'atzma. The word ha'aretz refers to this malchus which is separate. Asher ba nechlalim shar shlosh esrei tevis shal pasuk. So there are 13 words until you get to the word ha'aretz. And then that is the kolel that has all the rest in it. Ki hein ha'churban v'ha'bebitul. So these represent the destruction, the bittul. 1 second. Ha'ne'emer b'tevis pasuk, which is referred to in the words of the pasuk. V'heina tikun shal tikuni dikna ha'nirmazen b'mispar shlosh esrei tevis sheb'pasuk, and this refers to the beard from these 13. So he's saying, I'm trying to think, let's just read it now. V'chakol nichlal, the parts of Malchus, all of this is a part of Malchus, hanir mazis b'tevis ha'aretz, shebetachidus a-pasuk, which comes at the beginning of the pasuk, shetakida is betelis, Malchus, v'nechra v'achakach. First it loses its function, then after that it comes destroyed, and then after that, nisachna b'shlosh esrei tikuni dikna ka'amor. So that was a little off the where I would have thought. He said that there are 13 words over there that represent the power of the sweetening, I guess, that comes from the beard of Eric Anpin, which in some way, and it really wasn't spelled out easily for me, that connection all works to bring Malchus out, sweeten up this Malchus as parts of something like that. Now we're going into something different. That wasn't deep enough. Let's go a little bit more. He says, Shita alfe shnin talien b'shita kadmoi. He says, a sheshes alafim shana she'olam omed. So let's talk about the 6,000 years. Teluya b'shisha malachim anikroim malachim kadmoim. All of the 6,000, I guess, reflects a tikkun from the death of those malachim. Shel olam atohu. Shehem sheish midos. There are 6 midos here. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Shekol echad mechem melech, or is that word malach? Va'achar kach meis. All of them were in charge or took their kingdoms, but then they died. V'kach gam misnake ga'olah b'sheshes alofim shana. So the same thing is the way that the world works is now corresponding to that in 6,000 years. Ki b'kol elav shana yotze la'olam haza elach ha'neshamos shehem b'bechinas hamida shel osa elav. So each one of those has a special midah, each one of the 1,000 years. And the v'achar kach meisi v'dei adam elu, then after that, these people die. That is, these kings. The ha'indach be'elav v'rishon yotze ha'neshamos shehem b'bechinas chesed. Now he's talking about people. All of the people, or the neshamas, he said, come out for the aspect of chesed to them. Kimidas a chesed, shoylet be'elef arishon, it's in charge at that time. V'achar kachem mesim, then they die. V'yotzim be'elef hashen, another 1,000 comes out. The 1,000 hasheni neshamas achem be'bechinas gevura. Ki midas a gevura shoylet be'elef hasheni, because that's when the gevura starts. And every section of 1,000 years, yotzim neshamos b'midas acheres, umesim gam hem, and they also died. V'inyan zerabachu b'sod misas shisha malachim, and all of this is talking about the correspondence with the shisha malachim shal olam hatohu. The nimsa, and it comes out ki elef hashishi, so that the 6,000. Who shlitas midas yesod. It's the time when Yesod is in charge. So we're in the 6,000 cycle here. V'sof elef hashishi, and when you get towards the end of the 6,000s, ozhu zaman meluchas hamelech hashmini. It's the time when the 8th king is going to come out. This king is called Hadar. He's coming back, or Hadar, what does it mean? Shuhu ataras yesod. This Hadar is another word for the ataras yesod. Let me read this again. In the 6,000 years, at the end of it, you'll start seeing the emergence of the Ataras Yesod, Shalom Meis Ba'olam B'Tohu, which never died in the world of Tohu. Now let me say Ataras Yesod Shalom Meis Ba'olam B'Tohu, because it's the 8th king. V'lechem B'sof Elef Hashish. So therefore, at the end of the 6,000th year, who Yemos Mashiach. So that's when the time of the Mashiach comes. Asher Oz nisbatel hamisach b'bnei Adam, because then you see that death will be eliminated from people. Commotion Amar, as it said like this, he said in Yeshai, Mavis will be swallowed up forever. And now you will also see the revelation of the light of Chesed that's coming from the Taras Yesod. Shuhu or Yom Rishon Sh'Adam Roa Bom B'Sofa Olam Matsofa, because this is the first day that man sees this that you could see from one end of eternity to the next. The Rishon Sh'Adam Roa Bom B'Sofa Olam Matsofa. Vayedecha Bakach Yisuknu Kulam. So Yisuknu Kulam, and through this, all of them will be rebuilt. Shaviyo, like, huh? I'm sorry?
Interesting, Kevin. On the bottom.
Okay.
On the left, by the brackets, the very interesting point he makes over there.
Now let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on the Orla, we're in the period of like the Orla, the end of the 6,000. Before the Terrace is revealed, there's an Orla there.
Now, which number are you? I see the word Arlo.
In the left column, just on the top, where the brackets start. On the bottom, under the line.
Isse b'divrei Rabbeinu shebetachilus ikvus de b'shicha yesh his gavros haklipos. That's the one. Beso the Arlo she'al l'taras yisod. He said, well, what is the word? Mashiach yesh his gavros haklipos. V'achar kach b'bias a Mashiach. Then the Mashiach starts. Yikrusu ba'arlo. Then it will cut off the Arlo. V'yizgala ha'chesed shebe'chataras yisod, and it will reveal the chesed that is in the yisaras yisod. Rei divrei Rabbeinu b'hemshech sham over there v'zel l'shono. V'tachidus gilui ha'ekev shuhu ikvos meshichos, that as the ekev begins to become revealed, it's all metaphoric. She'oz klipa kodim lepri. Then you have the outside before you get to the sweet part. Let me just move this. So the arla shal pnei shal pum ama. So this is the arla that covers over the mouth of the organ. Yizgavra rabaklipa shesham ku bechinas nukva v'sod v'arla, etc. Says that what happens is now you're going to have the klipas are going to become very strong. Shehem hu bechinas nukva v'sod v'arla. This is some female aspect that needs to be removed. V'hein darging the toin the sta. They're the lowest level of the Sitra Achra. But bechinas ekev shalachem, it's the very heel of the other side. V'hein dargim the chetzivim. He says there are levels of chutzpah. Kamo she'amar bezoer v'zechu she'amar. This is what we said. Ve'ikvos b'shicha chutzpah yitzke. There will be plenty of chutzpah. V'achakach yikvos ha'arla. Then after that, the arla will be cut off. Yizgala ha'chesed, and what's underneath it will be chesed. Ad kan. So that's our metaphor. So we read a little bit more. So he says like this, V'zel d'shono, ha'tikun amaskil mimelech hashmini. The tikun starts from the eighth king, which is Hadar, who chesed the Ataras Yisod. So that's the chesed that's in the Ataras Yisod. Now, I just want to stop here for a minute. I've been thinking all along that the Ataras Yisod is female, and that as a result of that, it's a recipient. Here, he's not saying that. He's saying that it's really part of the Yisod system. That's why I think V'zel l'shono chatikun amaskil amelech hashmini hadar shuhu chesed the Ataras Yisod. It's the chesed that's in the Ataras of Yisod, which you would think that is the place where there would be the ultimate connection to the nukva, because he's holding the chesed. So let me read on. Kamo she'amar ba'idra rabba, we learned this over there. He said, "Is kaimov is basmo tikuni nukva b'hai ama de ikre chesed." So he says that it is sustained, it is sweetened, the tikunim that come from the kuni of the nukva, which here he means the malchus that he's been talking about. So he says, "B'hai ama de ikre chesed," with that member which is called chesed. Dechsiv v'yimloch tachtav Hadar, that Hadar ruled after him. My Hadar, chesed law. So we understand that this is what we learned in other places of what's called the what is it? Chodesh, what is it? I'm forgetting the words. The Ma Chodesh, okay. He says, Hadar chesed law v'zehu sod krisis ha'arla. This is the concept of the cutting off of the arla. Minimila. She'az yikvasucha v'kol ha'sitra achra bala ha'mavis. So that's that concept You get rid of it. Just get it off. Lo yiro v'lo yashchiso. So that's the end of that pasuk. Okay, so there, here, that are those ideas. I don't know who was talking here. Who we quoting? Okay, I guess we're quoting the Gra, right? So Gra is saying that, and I did see, I just saw that I haven't really understood this too well. So he says that Malchus actually is an independent entity, and what we're talking about, the Ataris Yesod, is really the Ataris, a part of the Yesod. It's the part that ultimately has the chesed in it that is going to be given into this entity, which is independent of this whole process. So now he's telling me that the whole process of bringing the, let's say, the tipa into this place of the Ataris Yesod is all that we work on all the time. That's the whole thing, is bring the tipa into the Ataris Yesod. That's where the nukva connects. He connects there. So that's the whole thing that we're learning about the tikkun, and Hadar is the one. What does Hadar do? Hadar is actually the sweetener. I guess he's the eighth king. He's the sweetener. He's the Ataris Yesod. Okay, that was a great piece. And what the Gon is doing is turning me upside down on top of my head. So, but he's really showing the real detail. What tremendous privilege it is to listen to this. Do you have any idea where we were before we went over there?
That was Ode Test.
That was Ode Test. I see it. Okay. 1 second. What times does this session go to?
Till about 1:45.
So we have, okay. We need to go through this section here. I said al yedei kach. I'm at Yud Tes now. Yisuknu kulum. All of them become besukin. I forgot some of this. Sheviyo alayhu. So he's on Hagas Elef Ashvi. This is now actually where it gets deeper and deeper. He says the way that the 7,000th year works, he alehem, it's on top of them. Shalashisha alof ishana, it's on top of the 6,000 years. Ki l'kach tuluyim ashesha alof ishana b'shisha tevas bara elokim as a shemayim b'za'aretz, because we said what? He said first of all, he had this word on top of them, right? Because this away hang the Shisha Alofim Shana, the 6,000 years hang down Beshisha Tevos Bara Elokim as a Shemayim Besa'aretz, it goes with them. Shehem Besod Shisha Malachim Shemesu. So he's saying all of these metaphors will put them together to the same thing as the 6 Malachim that died. Ve'elu Elef Ashviya Shvi. So now we're talking about this 7,000 years. Talui Beteva. Rishon, it really depends on the first word. So the first word is the word Bereshis. The 6 that we're talking about, Bara Elokim, come after Bereshis. So he says Shuhu Alehem, meaning that it's on top of them because they all spring out from it. Kihu Beso, the Bina, because that's Bina. Shehi Lamala min Hashisha, which is the highest one of the 6. Like we said up above. So this is the same idea. The Malchus comes back to its root in Bina. The Indian is like this. Ki Elef Ashvi, when we come to the 7,000 year. Husod HaMalchus, okay, our Malchus. She'enim Bechlal HaMalachim Kadmoin Demiso, okay, she's not part of that process. Ella is Batelis, but rather she got stopped working. Well, there's nothing flowing to her, I guess. I don't know. It's Batelis. So Gamosha Ambala'el, like we said up above. So he said, Ve'inyan habintelhu. So what's going on with this bittel? What does that mean? Let me get this down. 1 minute. Okay. Who she'ein zaman l'maluchas hamalchus. It means that she never got her energy going. El v'shasha magia zaman shlitas hamalchus. But when the time comes for her to become in charge, azai below shum misa, so she didn't die. Choseres hamalchus taketh the sharsha elyon shehubina. So when the time for malchus to actually rule are give her full strength. I'm not sure what rule means here, but anyway, she comes back Elyon Shehi Bina. She comes back to her source. This is Malchus rising to Bina. Shehu Soda Iver B'mei Ima, which is the concept of the Iver in the womb of Ima. Now listen to this. He says V'nimsa Kira Malchus Misbetelis, and that causes the Malchus to stop working. I think we should read it again. He said. So let's go up to the top of the line. He says, "She'ein ziman the maluchas hamalchus." The malchus time has not come. Ela b'shah she'magia ziman shlitas hamalchus. There is a certain cycle. It's like a clock that is going around, and when it gets to the number 7, she comes into play. That's my understanding. Azai below shum misa choseres hamalchus takif l'sharsha. But then, without any death, she automatically goes back at this time when she's shalet, goes back to her root, which is in Bina. Shehu Soda Iver, and she becomes like inside, hidden inside of the Mei Ima. I've word hidden. V'nimsikera malchus misbetelis, and is when that happens, she's not functioning. She's part of Bina. Is that it? V'zerav han hagas elef hashvi. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about the way that the 7,000th year is going to work. Shehu b'bechinas Yom HaShvi, Shehu b'sod Yom HaShabbos, which is the concept of Shabbos again. The istake b'lchudoi. The Oz mischazekas hanhagas abina bilvad, because then it becomes fortified the way that Bina works. Misbatelas shlitas malchus, and now everything is running like through Bina instead of running through Malchus, because Malchus has folded up herself up. She's up in Bina now. Okay, so I'm just reading along here. This Kula, and as a result of this, everything becomes destroyed. Olam Hazeh is Lashon Malchus. Malchus is not around anymore. Malchus is now related to Bina. So he said again, Hanhagas Olam Hazeh Sheshes Alafim Shana. So that's not working anymore. It stops. Shehein the Matachem in Hagas Bina, because they're down below, way down there. And so Shati. So he says, and there's 12, again, we got this word shots. So he said, but 12 different times. So this destruction, so when he says betracer shati, he means to say take 1,000, divide it into 12, something like that. And so therefore, they're trying to figure out this 12 he's got here, and the 12, it's a word 12 hours. So he says that you're going to have, the Churban will go through the entire 7,000th year. Shehu b'sod shtaim esrei shalos, which is the secret of 12 hours. Okay, Aleph HaShavi, because the 7,000. Huba b'chinas hamalchus shechozeret l'sharsha b'bina ka'amor. This is the concept that whole time of the movement of Malchus, who bechinas hamalchus shechozeres, that is going back the sharsha b'bina. Now hachozeres that goes back to a root in Bina. Kamor v'chamalchus nikras shah. Now he says a tracer shati. Now we got a definition for the word shah. Malchus is called shah. Hakolel shneim esrei shalos. It has 12 hours within it. So it's an hour that has 12 hourly hours or something. V'nimsa shahachurba besod anhagas habina. So therefore this churban, what does he mean by churban? He means that the physicality that we understand in this world the way it is will stop. And that's a total destruction. There won't be anything here because we'll be running after a higher level, which is Bina. Yihya besod shneim esrei shalos. So this comes to be the concept of 12 hours, shuhu elef hashvi, which is the 7,000. Now, that seems to be a thought that could be, wow. First of all, the information itself, I don't see it talked about in the Rav or anywhere else. So here the Gaon got this. So this is what is written in the second pasuk. So the land, which represents Malchus, just like we said that it stopped working up above. We talked about up above. What it means that this world, the way that it runs, everything we understand about it will stop. Elef Hashvi will be secret of the 7th year then, Ka'amor. V'hine az yischarev kol hanhagos olam hazeh, so then now there's going to be its destruction of all of this world. K'moshe kaseh bechem shekapaseh. Now he means the physicality and the way that the things work. Everything in this world is opposites and stuff like that. That won't be around anymore. So what is this? He says this, as this pasuk, let's look at this pasuk. V'lekach yesh shteim esrei teva, so count them up, there's 12 words there. Min choisa al hamayim, ad hamayim, there's 12 words from the word choisa until you get to the word mayim. Ki heim b'sam shteim esrei shaul shal malchus the elav hashvi. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to read it again just so I can see. He said that these 12 words, make sure there's 12. These 12 words, ki heim besod shteim esrei shaus, that's the concept of the 12 parts of Malchus. Malchus is the Shah. Malchus the Elef Hashvi of the Malchus of the 7,000th year. Let me go on. Asher bechem yihi ha-churban, because in them that's where the churban is going to take place. Let me see, let's mess this up here. He sowed Elef Hashvi Kamor Did I miss? I had to move the thing around. He Haim sowed Shteim Esrei Shaul Shal Malchus the Elef Hashvi Asher Bechem Choya HaChurban, that the Churban take place by them. Shal Tohu Avohu Kamor. Ve'elu Hashtem Esrei, so Ve'elu Hashtem Esrei Teva, so these 12 words, Romazim Gam L'Shneim Esrei Tikuni Dikna de Eric Anpin, of the 12 Tikunim in the beard of Eric Anpin. Now this is just too many things one on top of the next. He says these 12 words, I'd like to go back. Let's go back to where it says, I wanted to go back there. We have a couple of minutes now. Hoisa tohu vohu. So it says hoisa tohu vohu from that phrase. That's 1, 2, 3. Choshek 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then there's a 13th word is the hamayim, no? He says avilachach yesh shteim esrei tevos min hoisa adamayim. So you have 12 words there. Now, what are these 12 words? He wants to correspond them to these 12 hours. Ki heim besod shteim esrei shaul shal malchus the elef hashvi, of the 12 hours of the malchus of the. So it's a time period in some way. Asher bechem yihi ha-churban, because this is where the churban of this world will be. Shel tohu avohu kamor. So now you can go out and blast at the world that the world is going to come to an end. Okay. So now he says that these 12 words are a remez to the dikna of Eric Anpin, because what's happening, Eric Anpin's dikna is bringing us chesed, shehem sod tikuni hamalchus. This is the concept of the tikkun of the malchus. So what it is, that this sweetness has an origin in Eric Anpin. Malchus, what he had been talking about, is now in BINA. V'acher elef hashvi, so now after the 7,000th year is over, yihya tikun ha'churban v'hachidush ha'olam. That's the time when you're going to have the churban is going to be rebuilt. V'chidush ha'olam, and renewed the world. The world will be new. The hainu tleiser, that is 13. He says 13 is a big number. Tikun ha-shlosha asa, because the 13th tikun, the dikna de Eric Anpin, shuha mazel nikra v'nake, hisach ha-nirmaz b'tevis hamayim, shehi tevis ha-shlosh esrei shebesof ha-posuk. This is the 13th word, right? So this is the same thing it says is the 13th tikun. It's the pool of all that chesed. Yakim lom barachameh. He's going to stand for us. Yakim v'yisakin es kol shteim esrei shal malchus. It's going to, again, this metaphor about the 12 hours, it looks like you could write a book on it. I don't know what it is. V'ha'inya knew the Inyan is like this. Ki tikkun ashlosh esrei dikna de Eric Anpin. If you want to make that the tikkunim of the beard of Eric Anpin. He says, Rachmim Gemor, Bechinas, the complete and plural Rachmim. Chola Besocho as Kol Shneim Shnaim Eser Tikuni Arishon the Dikna, it has within, in other words, number 13 holds the first 12. Ubo Nimshach HaChesed the Elyon Asher Al Yado Nisaknim Kulam. So from it, then you see is coming down now. This upper Chesed that was through it, Nisaknim Kulam, everything is rebuilt. Nischanshen Bekadmisa, and then become renewed. So then the 12 hours come back and they're like new. Shal HaMalchus, the Malchus is, it must be like shining. V'kam b'chol inin shita. V'kein yukumo v'yischadru kol osam shisha malachim al yadim hisnagu kol sheshes alafim shana. Now let me read his words. He says, also then will stand up and become renewed. All osam, the 6 malachim will all come back. So the tikkun of the malachim that led, this is a long story, because the tikkun of the malachim that ultimately led to the chesed coming through to the Yataras Yisod, the Zer Anpin, which made it possible for him to make a yichud with Malchus, that story is coming over here now, because in the meantime, what happened? I don't know. I'll try to figure it out. Shal Yadim is Nagu Kol Shesha Olafim Shada, because this is what ran the Malachim, the 6,000 years. They're going to be Mesukin. Shal Kiyam Ma'olim. V'kol Han Deshama Sheyatza B'Shesha Olafim Shana. Also the Shama that came out in those 6,000 years, Umeis would die. Al Ata Yischadshim V'Yatza the Olam Azechah B'Roshain. They're going to become renewed, and they'll come back into the world. And the world would be new. Tikkun agumor, bit ultimate tikkun. Umevi raya shachapasuk bereshis. So now it's bringing a raya that this pasuk which says bereshis baro lokim as a shemayim va'aretz. He said Romans the chidush habriya. It's really to tell us about the renewal of creation. The achar kiyam ma'olam hazeh b'sheshes alafim shana, during the 6,000 years. At the end of that, b'sod sheish kitzvos, which is the secret of the 6 kitzvos, is their anpin v'shlitas of malchus, and then the control of malchus be'elef hashvi, in the 7th time, the 7,000, when she goes up into Bina, begin dechsiv bara, because it rids bara. Now here we go. Shaharechu kodim shakasa b'torah bereshis bara. Before you had this bereshis bara, the mashbel shachaisa bria sheyesh lokiyim, which is mazah bereshis bara. Bara means to say that bara means it was done, it was created, it's out there. He said that it lasts, it has kiyum, it lasts. There's a labasa kasiv, and then after that it's written like this: chaisa, then it was. And then it brings in this concept of the mass, of the Misa Malachim. The Mashra Shelo Yiskaim B'Bria, which means that it broke. So it was there, but it's not there. The caution, that's a problem. He said, why? Ich Shaykh Lomer Makodem, how could it have said before Shachais Bria Sheyesh Lokiyim? One he says it was a Bria that lasts. V'achakach Lomer Shachais Toku Belokiyim, and then he says it goes into nothingness, in chaos. The Chavas Vadai, Ella Tevis Hoisa, Misparish al Tevis Haaretz. So you put the two of them together. Ha'amar b'techilas apasuk. Shehi sod ha'malchus, which is the secret of malchus. Shehi choisa sholetet b'vadai ba'elef hashvi, that she was really in charge in that 7,000 years. Kodem chidush ha'odem, before the world is renewed. So that 7th year is a year of nothing. Of the sof tohu bohu v'choshech, and then at the end, all of this concept of the chaos that was the inyan shlitaso ki shechozeres the shorsh of the bina, that everything comes back to its root in bina. And we're finishing up now. Na'asa the besof tohu bohu v'choshech, they all come back. Shehu inyan churban anhagas oilam hazeh. So he meant, wait a minute, did I skip something? Shechozeres the shorsh of the bina. I got that right. V'na'asa the besof tohu mohu v'choshech, and in the end they're going to make all of this chaos. Shehu inyan the churban anhagas oilam, which is the concept of destruction of the way this world works. V'az yiskayim a pasuk, then the pasuk will be fulfilled. V'nizkav Hashem the vada b'yom malchut, and Hashem will be elevated by Himself on that day. Kolomar She is that the seventh year will be nullified. Will nullify Hanagas Ha'olam Hazeh. That's what's going to happen. The way that this world works will stop. Everything will be, and he said, then everything will be strengthened. Then on Hagas Ha'alyonet the Bina Bilvad, then you'll see only Bina will be in charge, whatever that means. He said, so he says, Ka'amor v'achar kach yischadesh ha'olam al yedei Tikna Shlosha Asa the Dikna until to the 13th Tikna, and you'll see that ultimately that is going to pour out on us b'yom Ahu on that particular day. What is the b'yom Ahu? Shehu gilui koich hagas shal Eric Anpin, on that day in which the way that Eric Anpin actually is pouring out onto the running of the world, Hanikra Hu, because he's called Hu, B'lashon Nister V'Elam. Okay, that's a lot of new stuff there.